Hello everyone, and welcome to this video lecture on user support management in my help desk software and technical support series. In this lesson, we'll be going over introducing you to the perspective of the manager of a help desk support group. Now, the first half of this will cover ways that the managers evaluate their staff performance, and then the second half will focus on the training and certification for your support staff. Let's take a look at those objectives now. The ones I'll be going over are the mission of the support group. We'll talk about the items in a typical user support budget, how you staff your help desk, some of those support staff training programs that should be in your organization, an evaluation of support staff performance. We all dislike this area, but it's definitely an area we need to discuss. We'll also talk about some of the industry certifications for support professionals. Next part will be about professional help desk and user support associations that are out there, and then the ethical principles that guide our professional behavior of us as support workers and what we expect of those who may work for us. If we are the manager in a help desk support group, we want to make sure that we are practicing and employing ethical principles, and that those that work for us are also using ethical principles to guide them as our support workers. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at that first objective now over the mission of a support group. I guess what might be best is, before we move into this actual talk about the mission of a support group, you might want to know, well, why do we even need to know about user support management? Well, applicants for various support positions in the industry need to understand the perspective of support managers. You might have heard the term support specialist before, and this gets used in a lot of job descriptions or job titles. But support specialists in a small organization often perform some various management tasks, such as a project leader or a project coordinator. Even maybe you just see the term coordinator or IT coordinator, user support coordinator. Another thing that some of those tasks that might be is supervisory or lead worker responsibilities on a certain level, and then user support group management of that group. So I just thought it'd be good just to talk about that real quick. Now let's talk about the mission statement. And sometimes you may hear this thrown around a lot, and sometimes that isn't as clear as it ought to be, but we should probably clarify that right now. Now, in your organization, the mission statement is that guiding principle or principles that communicate support goals and objectives to your staff, to the users, as well as to management in the organization. Like I said, a lot of times people will get the mission and vision mixed up. So here's an example of a mission of a user support group. The mission of the user support group might be to maximize operational efficiency among the organizational users in an organization by providing timely resolution to various technology user questions, as well as to effectively manage problems to continuously improve quality of support services to users, usability of information systems, effectiveness of documentation and training, user satisfaction with support services. Now, it's a two-part mission, but it's very well written and clearly states those guiding principles and our goals and objectives of us as a support group to the staff, so that we know, to our users, and to the management in this organization. As a manager, it is highly important to know in your managerial role that you need to provide a good mission statement to your help desk support staff and to the organization as a whole. So make sure that you have a clear mission statement for the user support or help desk support staff. Now let's move on to an area that's a little bit challenging in an organization, and to us as managers, as well as user support or user desktop support, whatever title is given to you in your organization, and that is budgeting. And we'll go over some of those items that are typically found in a user support budget. You'll find in your organization that the help desk budget is really just a financial plan that translates the goals of that mission statement we just talked about into a very concrete strategy to meet those goals. So we as managers need to have that financial plan. We need to prepare it. And some of those categories that you will come across when you're doing your budget plan are revenue, that income or what's coming into the organization. The expenses, which is the part we all struggle with. We know in the IT world we have to spend money to keep things working and provide that response and to provide the support that our organization deserves and expects of us, even though we find out that a lot of times people think that if everything's running right, I don't need to put any money into it because nothing's broke. Well, there's a reason why it's not broke, because we're trying to make sure that we maintain and have a great system in place. Good luck with working with your budgets in your organizations. But besides the revenue, we have the costs. And with the costs, some of those costs can be such things as the personnel, that support staff we have to have in place, the supplies we need, obviously, any services we need to employ, as well as facilities. And when you think of facilities, this can be a very broad term. This could be anywhere as office space to maybe you have a backup site that you have for your emergency response. So maybe if you have a disaster recovery plan in place and you have to have a site that is not in the town that your business is at, but you need to use that in case there's a disaster, and you need to, that's part of your recovery plan, is to have some offsite storage there, whatever the case may be. That's a cost that you may need to incur. But the actual dollar amounts in your help desk budget are going to vary depending on lots of factors. Like I said, the kinds of users that you're going to support, or your help desk supports, whether it be internal customers or external customers. Another factor would be the ways in which your help desk services are going to be provided, whether it's online or face-to-face, phone support, web support, whatever the case may be. There's costs that are incurred with that. Another one would be the range of services that are provided, whether you're a full support service, such as installs or training. Maybe it can be very, very expensive if you're going to provide these services, whereas just providing phone services may be a completely different cost. It just depends on the range of service. You also have the number of support employees and how they're going to be supervised, so that determines how much management staff you're going to have as well. So that is another factor. So all these things have to be kept in mind when you're working on that user support budget. Now let's talk about another area in which is very important, and that's how we're staffing our help desk. Now when it comes to staffing the help desk, this is all based on the goals in the help desk mission statement. Support managers are obviously going to be responsible for determining the amount or the number of agents that are required for staffing this help desk and providing those services that are needed to the organization. We also have to write position descriptions for HR, as well as being part of the selection process for getting those staff members into our organization and supporting our help desk. Sometimes it can be tricky, but you need to be able to be aware of the need for sufficient staff to meet the demands of your organization for very timely responses to the incoming incidents. You need to staff at a level which avoids idle agents and unproductive payroll expenses, and you do not want to be seen as a cost center for your organization. So this is it's not just winging it. You need to make sure that you understand your organization, understand the organizational needs, and to meet the goals of the mission statement, exactly how you need to staff your organization's help desk. This is one of those reasons why I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure you have a help desk software in place to generate those tickets or for those incidents and those problems, so that you can provide evidence as to why you are employing the staff you have. You need to provide justification for your IT existence. You might have heard of the Erlang. This is a unit of traffic, such as those with user instances in a given time period. So if we have that system in place, we can say, okay, we've had this amount of tickets in this period of time. And then you can break it down into further units to help justify the existence. So Erlang calculations estimate the number of help desk agents required to meet both peak and off-peak incident volumes for your organization. Obviously, a couple other ways that you can use to calculate your staffing levels are both trial and error, which can be very detrimental to, employees, as well as your personal experience. If you've had 20 years of experience in the field and you go in and you're like, okay, I see the volume of this, I see the type of services this organization provides, blah, blah, blah. I know from personal experience that I need a staff of 2 or 3 individuals, or maybe it's a very large organization and you're like, okay, I see a need for 20 people to do phone support. I have a need for 6 people on my help desk support, which you're actually going out and helping those customers face to face. I need this amount of remote support, whatever the case may be. Just having that experience is another way that you can help calculate the staff levels for your help desk. Now, we as managers sometimes need to help in the recruitment of our help desk agents. And this can be a side-by-side process with your human resources department, or it may be completely on you to staff that desk, to recruit your help desk agents and to interview them, as well as to work on what is the given salary range for your area for this type of job. And that can be a very daunting task. So hopefully you're going to be working with your human resources professionals. Part of that may be creating position descriptions for your various roles in the help desk support staff. Besides writing those position descriptions, you may need to prepare various advertising or recruiting information for those open positions. You might need to screen applications that have been received for your best match with the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required for those workers. And you'll sometimes hear these known as KSAs. These lists of knowledge, skills, and abilities are required to make sure you can help round out those position descriptions along with your mission statement, so you're meeting the needs of that mission statement. But KSAs are a term you might hear once in a while. It's just a list of the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities that are required for workers in those positions. You might, besides screening the applications, be part of the actual interview process for interviewing the applicants with that best combination of those knowledge, skills, and abilities that are needed. And then lastly, this is kind of rare, but you may actually be part of checking the applicant employment references and getting information about those potential hires. That obviously there are certain things you need to know that you can ask and cannot ask. So you will need to work with your human resources department or legal department to get that information so that you're not breaking any laws. During that interview process, there are certain tests and types of questions that may be included in that process, such as giving some type of knowledge and skill test. I highly recommend this. I've seen in situations where people are employed that they looked good on paper, but a knowledge test or an actual skills test was not given, and then they find out in a short period of time that the candidate did not have the actual skills that they thought they had when it was on paper. Just like with certification, some people may be great at taking tests, but the actual application of those skills are not there, whereas someone else might have years of experience in actually performing certain tasks, and they can pass those skills tests. You'll have those traditional interview questions, those direct questions and non-directed questions during the interview process. You also see that your HR managers will probably provide you some behavioral questions to help understand how they will act and get along with people in the organization, and definitely with your other help desk agents. Stress tolerance assessments to see how they'll deal with stress. Just make sure that you do know what questions are legal and what questions are illegal, so you avoid any type of scenarios that you have to come across that and get yourself into some hot water. So make sure that you understand what questions are illegal. I'll give you just a couple examples. Examples of some of those illegal questions or applicant characteristics in an employment review are like age, ethnicity, the marital status, their religious affiliation. Just make sure you avoid these things. And it's always great to go out and get some training on this, regardless of what size of organization you're in. But definitely rely on your human resource managers to help you, guide you through this prior to an interview. All right, enough about staffing a help desk. Let's move on to talking about our support staff training programs. Now, this is one of the most important aspects of user support and the help desk management, and that's that user support staff training. Now, this is going to include things such as new worker orientation as well as ongoing training that's going to allow your experienced staff to update their knowledge and keep their skills current. And in the IT world, we know that this is ongoing because we have a very dynamic profession and not a static profession, because things are definitely always changing in the IT world. To make your new support staff feel comfortable in the organization and being able to know how the organization runs as well as what's expected of them, the mission statement, and how everything works, you should always have some orientations for new staff. It is impossible and it's not expected that your new staff should learn on the job everything they need to know about the organization just on a whim. So you should conduct one or more training sessions for your new support employees and include such topics as the organizational structure. And it's great to bring in those important managers so that these individuals know who they're working with and know a little bit about those managers and their areas. You should also provide some topics on like organizational culture, the policies and procedures of the organization. Obviously, some of those HR, payroll, and employee benefits should be included. Talk about your support workflow and your group's policies and procedures that are specific to your support group. Obviously, you need to include topics such as the specific job skills that are required and training that's going to be involved, as well as the tools you're going to employ that these new employees are going to be using, such as their help desk tools, the phone system, maybe some type of ticketing system or incident management software that you use, something specific to your group. And a lot of times you will have in-house software that people have never used before. And as with help desk ticketing software, not everyone employs the same software. You also need to include in with your orientation for your new employees, talk about performance appraisals, criteria, and procedures so they know what to expect and are not, shocked at the first time they get a performance appraisal and then find out that they're not up to par. That's a whole nother topic on making sure that you're giving continuous feedback, so I won't go on that. But also about professional development in your organization and career path opportunities that are there for support staff as their tenure gets longer and they're no longer a new staff. They need to know, are there other opportunities? Now, we don't just stop there with the new hire orientations. We also need to have ongoing training for our employees. And this obviously is going to require some downtime for agents, but you want to keep your help desk staff current with changes in technology. Maybe there's something that's changed in some of the software you use. People should not be expected to just know this stuff. We need to provide them that training. Provide some professional growth and development, and this is where you want to make your people better, such as prepare for and help, to get them to take some certification exams. Let them attend conferences or various training sessions. Maybe subscribe to some trade publications that are relevant to your support staff that are on hand. So if they're on a break or whatever, they can read some of this information it's out there, it's available to them, and you're showing that you want to provide them ongoing professional growth and development. Well, now that we have our staff, we need to talk a little bit about the evaluations of the support staff and their performance, and as well as justification. So it's very important to even know what performance appraisal is, and that is just a process to evaluate support agents according to some established criteria that you have created, whether as the manager or along with human resources or even other members of management, that is based around the support mission statement, that's specific to the position description that I mentioned earlier, and that's related to both your employees' professional growth objectives as well as their prior performance. Some of these performance tools that you might have heard of or have come across are performance statistics, maybe monitored calls to evaluate them for quality, and to use as a performance tool. So monitoring the calls is pretty typical. And then maybe user satisfaction surveys that your organization uses where your customers are given direct feedback. This is another one of those tools we can use to evaluate the performance of our support staff. Sometimes we will use these performance statistics, or our management team will use these performance statistics to even justify the need and budget for us as a help desk or staff. So we need to look at some of the things, and really a lot of times you're either looked at as a cost center or a profit center in your organization. Now, in a cost center operation, the cost of providing user support services appears as an expense in an organization's budget without a corresponding revenue source. So the management will say, oh, we're spending all this money. Well, what are we actually getting? They're not actually giving us any or generating any revenue. Now, in a profit center view, the user support costs are treated as expenses, but those expenses are offset by revenue generated by the user support group. So in a profit center operation, a user support group might change or charge certain fees to clients or even to other departments who make use of those support services that we're providing, and we call that a chargeback. We are actually charging a fee back to someone for using these services. So it just depends on the organization. But sometimes we're also viewed as a negative cost center, as I said, where we're not generating money. And sometimes that's the reason we're there. We are there to provide support so everyone else can operate normally. We're not generating money by making sales or anything like that, but we're making sure everyone that does need to perform those tasks are able to. So that's the importance of having those performance statistics, because we can now evaluate our help desk operations using various ways of saying, okay, the reason we exist may not be to make sales, but because we are here, we're providing 99.999% uptime for those people that can. We're getting this many tickets. We're working on this amount of projects. We've responded to this many phone calls, blah, blah, blah. That's how we use those performance statistics to justify our existence. Now let's move on to some industry certifications for our support professionals. Now, a certification is just basically an assessment process to measure and document your knowledge and your skills, whether it's an individual certification or certification or of a whole support group. With individual certifications, this can include formal educations, whether it's diplomas, degrees, industry certifications. Maybe they're industry standards such as CompTIA that document our knowledge and provide we kind of know some knowledge and know how to troubleshoot, know the basics, or maybe they're even vendor-specific product knowledges and skills, such as with a firewall. Maybe you have a Juniper or Cisco certification that says, yes, I know what I'm doing. Or maybe it's with Dell. Let's say you're Dell certified or Apple certified technician that knows how to work on the hardware. So there's different types of individual certifications. And lastly, as I said, some certification programs are solely aimed at organizations as a group rather than as individuals. Perhaps you're a member of some group, such as the Help Desk Institute, where they offer services to ensure that they certify entire help desk groups, not individuals. So you're evaluated against support industry best practices, which are the procedures, the tools, and the methods that successful support groups use. Therefore, it is a certification of a support group. Last thing I'll say about certifications is that take an opportunity, get some certifications. A lot of organizations will not even interview you to bring you in to help train you or anything without certifications. And the HR world seems to be so cyclical in that sometimes they were looking for people with experience, sometimes they only want to interview people who have that demonstrated experience via certifications. So always make sure you have some certifications in your back pocket. Some of the benefits besides just getting a interview would be that certifications are seen as a recognized benchmark of that minimum level job skills and expertise, as well as justification in an organization for promotions or increases. Those are just a couple benefits. There's lots more out there, but definitely make sure to take opportunities to get industry certifications. Now let's move on to talk about professional help desk and user support associations. So many people are now employed in the user support field. There are several groups that have organized to help provide professional associations to us as user support workers. Now, when I use the term professional association, this is just a formal organization that represents the interests of a group of professionals and provides services to those professionals as a membership. Now, lots of other organizations have this as well, but let's just talk about some that are targeted to user support and help desk managers as well as their staff, such as the HDI or Help Desk Institute. There's the Association of Support Professionals, or ASP, Network and Systems Professional Associations, Women in Technology, or WIT, as well as Association of Information Technology Professionals, or AITP. I'll close out this lecture with our last topic, and that is the ethical principles that guide the professional behavior of support workers in the organizations. And one of the benefits of those professional associations is they may undertake to adopt and distribute to you a code of ethical conduct or principles that guide those members to having a more professional behavior, help make you make those right decisions based on ethics. So I think that's very important to talk about. You will probably have some ethical training in an organization, but let's talk about a couple of those ethical standards that you might come across that you should be expected to adhere to, such as adhering to federal, state, and local laws, including those that govern information technology, the workplace, and public health and safety. An example of this is knowing how to properly dispose of electronics. Believe it or not, there are still some CRT monitors out there. You can't just throw those in the dumpster. You need to know how to properly dispose of those. So that is part of local and state laws that you will come across, and you need to adhere to those. Another example principle of ethical conduct you may come across is to advocate for a better understanding of technology among end users and the public. Another one, act with integrity and honesty in dealing with the public, end users, your co-workers, your management, as well as your competitors. Another example for ethical standards is to protect the privacy and reputation of end users. We all see, different news media out there covering how this information's leaked or that information's leaked. Don't you be the person who's broken that ethical standard of not protecting the privacy and reputation of your end users. You also need to report violations of ethical principles of conduct. Report all security vulnerabilities and work to eliminate harmful uses of technology in your organizations. Now, these are just a couple of ethical principles that help guide us to that professional behavior. So make sure that you are looking into different codes of ethical conduct that are published by professional associations and within your organization. Know about the ethics in the field as well as the organization. Make sure to pay much attention to those codes of ethical conducts. And I've used this term loosely, and that's really just a set of principles to guide you as a support worker's professional behavior, which can be either, as a professional behavior, it can be either ethical, it can be unethical, or illegal. Make sure you're making the best ethical choices for you as an individual, for your organization, and for your communities. And then take this information to hopefully help other professionals distinguish between ethical, unethical, and illegal behavior. Thank you everyone for following along. I appreciate your assistance and your patience with my videos. I know it's a lot of information, but I just want to provide you the best amount of information as possible to help you become better professionals in your organizations. Thank you everyone for following along. Take care.